Hello, folks. This is Jeff Davis with the legendary Jeff Davis Show from Central Texas, USA. And I love Mike Hanson Archives. Peace out, baby.
How dare you call yourselves patriots and heroes? If you say the government is in a conspiracy to take your freedom away, you are just plain wrong. There is no freedom.
Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is a very real prospect of a new world order.
The new world order does not mean surrendering our national sovereignty or forfeiting our interests.
That America's central bank operates in the public interest. The truth is that the Federal Reserve is a private bank owned by private stockholders and run purely for their private profit. Any doubt whether the Federal Reserve is a part of the U.S. government, check your local telephone book. In most cities, it is not listed in the blue government pages. It is listed in the business white pages right next to Federal Express, another private company. But more directly, U.S. courts have ruled time and time again that the Fed is a private corporation.
Today, we're all going to learn a new term. It's only 2 words. Now listen closely. Can all of you say constructive fraud?
Constructive fraud!
Did you ever get the feeling as you're staring at the ceiling that this game of life we're playing fair seems as fast as we can make it? There's a hand that grabs and takes it till they find us in a grave somewhere. Like a rodent on a treadmill, we keep pushing for it uphill, but we never seem to get too far. Well, if you think you're being taken, then you're ready to awaken to the truth of what we really are. We're all indentured, servitudal slaves, overburdened and bewildered feudal knaves, who have lost our sole posterity through ignorance and apathy, and now we're being taxed out of our graves. And as long as we stay passive, we'll succumb, contented with some socialistic crumb. Well, the naked truth and fact is we're all saps who pay our taxes, and that is why the banksters keep us dumb. Could the state of our condition be the product of omission, what we didn't learn in public schools? And did our fathers all through history all fight and die for liberty so we could play the tyrants fools? And can you call it education when it's all indoctrination to obey the hidden powers that be? Did we fight the revolution? Did we win the world wars just to slumber into slavery? We're all indentured, servitudal slaves, overburdened and bewildered feudal knaves, who have lost our sole posterity through ignorance and apathy, and now we're being taxed out of our graves. And as long as we stay passive, we'll succumb, contented with some humanistic crumb. Well, the naked truth and fact is we're all saps who pay those taxes, and that is why the banksters keep us dumb. While Franklin and Eleanor were telling us they hated war, they made a deal behind our backs. They said the bankers could enslave us for a portion of our wages, and today we call it income tax. But what they failed then to tell us was the way they planned to sell us into statutory slavery. Now it's called constructive fraud. Some even claim the wrath of God. I call it social insecurity. Let's stop being indentured, servitudal slaves, overburdened and bewildered feudal knaves, and reclaim our lost posterity. Rise up and proclaim liberty. It's high time we rock the boat and make make some waves. 'Cause as long as we stay passive, we'll succumb. They'll starve us on their communistic crumb. And the naked truth and fact is, we don't have to pay those taxes. Yes, it's time we show those banksters, those international gangsters. So let's turn the tables and spoil all their fun.
That's all.
I love Mike Hanson Archives. Yeah! You ready to run?
Hello, Austin, Texas. We are back. And we've got a show today, folks, that you all want to hang on to. We've got plenty of footage coming up. We've got several stories we're going to be talking about today. One of which is we've got to follow on to this Roland Ellingson story. Since the we talked about this last week, and I'll get into that just a little bit more, but later. But we've got to follow up to that about the fella that, and apparently this is going on quite often, but a fella that had a privileged lien of a statement written to him about the from the Austin Health and Human Services Travis County so-called health department, and now that they're focusing on people's properties and sending bureaucrats out to harass citizens on their private property. You ready with it? Okay. We got to follow up to that later on in the program. Right here it is. It's hard to see it, but whatever. But we got to follow up coming to that, and it involves actually, folks, a current city council member. I'm not going to mention names, but it involves the property of a current city council member, the one that's allowing these things to happen. So you want to stay tuned to that. Secondly, we've got a couple of guests coming in here in about 20 minutes, and they're going to be talking about this story. Then we've got some footage, folks. Well, and it's talking about, I'm just going to go ahead and read. This is an open letter from one of the current presidents of the Republic of Texas, Stephen Creer, Sr. As President of the Republic of Texas, our government and myself personally strongly protest the killing of Mr. Esequiel Hernandez Jr. by U.S. Marines in Polvo Crossing, Texas. The Republic of Texas condemns the actions of the Marines involved and the failure of the United States government for not bringing the perpetrators of this heinous act to justice and for failure to compensate the grieving family for such a tragic loss. Further, the Republic of Texas condemns the state of Texas through a de facto government for failing to act in a just and reasonable manner to protect the safety and rights of Texas citizens. As President of the Republic of Texas, on behalf of the citizens and residents of Texas, I want to express our deepest sorrow to Mr. Hernandez and his family. Basically, folks, what happened, and we're going to get into this, we got some footage of this, so it's going to be, it's a quite interesting piece. It's quite an interesting story. And apparently there was a young fella who was shot and killed by U.S. Marines in Polvo Crossing, Texas. It's on the border. And apparently this is a story that we're going to get into here in just about 15 minutes. And we've got some guests in here, and we've also got some excellent footage to accompany some excellent video to accompany the story with that. Later on, we're going to be we've got some exclusive Republic of Texas footage. We're only going to play about 10 minutes of it here tonight. But it shows some things that would happen during the standoff in Fort Davis, Texas, that was not seen in the mainstream media. That being predominantly people protesting what was happening, people screaming about information not getting out to the public, and the only information you were getting was from the pre-approved news script. We've got that coming up. And later on in the show, we've got a friend of mine, Alex Jones, coming on about it. It's to be about 9:30. Local radio man here in Austin and a public access producer. And we're going to have a follow-up to this story. And we've already put it up there, but we talked about it last week. I talked about it on my radio program. Basically, what it amounts to, folks, is we can go ahead and get a shot of this, I guess. One more shot of this. And this is going on prevalently right now, folks. Not just in Texas or the city of Austin, but all across the country. We've got this coming up. We've got some excellent footage coming up, which involves a current city council member's property. And I think that you'll find that it's going to be very interesting, to say the least, as far as what's happening with people's property and these bureaucrats coming on people's property. Now, in response to all of this, it was brought to my attention that the local newspaper, I'm not going to mention it, but the local newspaper, in fact, did a story on this same thing that we did
2 days later.
Yeah, a couple days later. Now, what it involved was that this people are getting notes, getting letters from the city and the so-called county health department, talking about that they need to cut their grass, they need to remove rubbish and garbage from their properties. Now, a couple days after we did this last Monday, apparently there was a story that came out in the local newspaper. And their take on it was front page, and they listed the same agency that we talked about on this program last Monday. And apparently their argument for bureaucrats going around harassing people in their property, their private property rights, was for crime. And the gist of the story was that if the people don't keep their weeds cut down, homeless people and so-called criminals and all this could potentially get into their property and create criminal acts upon the neighbors. This was the gist of the story that was in the local newspaper. And so this is the underlying message that was in that story, and that was basically that the American people the local property owners are so irresponsible that they need some government bureaucrat coming in and ordering them and dictating to them how they're going to live on their property. Now, of course, this is your big brother. This is Big Daddy government again, telling us what's best for us, supposedly. And but it is an honor that some of the other media sources in town are at least acknowledging our efforts down here. And we want to say that right there. Speak out against evil now, or submit in silence later. Now, in relation to all of this and the story that was in this newspaper story, one thing that the enemy is doing, and I'm going to be talking about this later on when we talk about this communist action of controlling people's property. One thing that the enemy is doing, folks, and you see this clearly now, and virtually every tyrannical regime that has moved in on a mass of people throughout history has used one little element, and that is tattletale on everybody else. The IRS, for example, if you turn somebody in for not paying your income tax, let's say you haven't filed or whatever, whoever turns that person in is subject to receiving 10% of the lost revenue, lost taxes. Now, in this story that came out in the paper the other day, they put the phone number of this health department, so-called health department, in their newspaper, the same number that we put up on this program last Monday, We put the number up for people to call and complain to this health department.
They say to get help.
The paper put the number up there of this so-called health department to tell people, to advise them that if you have any neighbors or anybody that you live with or live around that has high weeds, to call and report, to this so-called health department that their neighbor weeds are too high.
And
This is one of the tactics of the enemy, folks. I also saw another news piece that was talking about if you see somebody throwing a cigarette butt out of the car, if you in these so-called community neighborhoods, these neighborhood associations, where it's got people reporting on everybody, tattletelling on everybody. This is a typical tactic of the enemy and how they've got us all fighting amongst ourselves, ratting on each other, while the real evildoers are perpetrating their deeds.
Jeff, that footage they just showed was a council member's, not the man that's being harassed. And the council member's being left alone.
Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and get to that later on in the program. But anyway, now here's the thing, folks. Now I had a friend that just came back from a trip to California, and this is very interesting. There was, on his way out there, when he hit New Mexico, there was a state mandatory DWI, I think it's called DUI, stop. So in the state of New Mexico now, they're stopping people under the disguise of potentially you being drunk or you being the auspices of you being drunk. When he got to California, there was 2 stops. One was a fruit inspection stop, and the second one was an INS stop. So what we've got here, folks, is these world order states, the ones that I think California is one of the leaders of the pack in the world order regime, is now stopping people, coming up with different reasons, designs for doing it, and then they basically use these types of ploys to gather up information on us. He also picked up the latest Truckers magazine, which described smart highways and how the truckers can now be tracked through on their trips to and from the states and locations that they're going to, and it was presented to us again as a good thing. Well, let me just mention to you, folks. Think of the abuses that we're putting up with today. We've got the IRS swarming down on us. We've got the property tax man coming to us. We've got things like Mr. Ellingson, where the so-called county health department is forcing us to act certain ways. We have ordinances, dog ordinances, in Gonzales, Texas. It was brought to my attention that they are now fining people $1,000 per day for every day that your dog is running loose.
This is 2,000 a day.
These types of laws, ordinances, permits, all of these types of things, folks, is communism, it's fascism, it's totalitarianism. Now, if anyone questions the use of national ID systems, smart highways, electronic control of transactions, financial transactions, as being good and being in our best interest, think about how much the people are being violated and harassed today just with the current means. Now accelerate that up to a system of enslavement, of so-called maintaining laws. That's what it is. And let me remind you, folks, that there are enough laws in this country to make all of us criminals. There's hoarding laws. There's all types of laws to literally make us all criminals. They're just not being implemented this time, but they are there. So I want to just go ahead and mention that, folks, that if you allow the technology itself is neither good or bad. The problem is the people that are controlling the technology and their motives behind the technology is bad. And they are fixing up a system of enslavement designed for you and me and everybody else under the disguise of things like cleaning up your cutting your grass. Yeah, it's always presented in our best interest. Now, we're going to, on this show tonight, counter much of this garbage, this communist, fascism, totalitarianism that's coming down on us. Like I say, first thing we've got a story about this Mr. Esequiel Hernandez Jr., who supposedly was shot about this, but now we've got some actual some footage of it and some people who know some particulars about this case. That's going to be the first segment. Then we're going to go to a little Republic of Texas information piece that you probably not see in the mainstream media. The fact is there were many people supporting Rick McLaren and many of the people going on up there. However, you didn't see that. The only thing you saw was Mr. Cox at the DPS and his feeding you the pre-approved script. You know, the ones we're supposed, the information that we're only allowed to receive and what we're supposed to believe. And then following that, we've got this special piece. We sent a team out yesterday and got some footage of one of the current council members and the shape that their particular property is in. These are the people that are supposedly setting up the liens and the directing the city manager and the so-called staff to implement certain policies. And we're going to show the hypocrisy in all of this later on in the program. And with that, I want to mention, first off, we've got coming up here on August 24th, we've got scheduled the third seminar. It's called Downsizing Government. There's going to be a list of speakers there. And it's going to be on August the 24th at 7300 North IH-35 from 2 to 6 p.m. on Sunday. If we have a slate for that, we go ahead and, I don't know if we do or not, but this is going to be actually the third one that they've had two, and this is going to be the scheduled third one coming up here on Sunday, the August 24th. And like I said, there's going to be some speakers there, and it should be good, so come on out there. Also, I want to mention that our breaks are currently, we're calling them fun breaks. And we're going to start a little series. We've already started a little expose, little stories and exposés with Alex Jones, who's a radio talk show host here in Austin. And we're going to be getting to his particular segment later on. And we're also going to start, hopefully, scheduled to start a series of stories and little investigative stories with Joyce Isaacs. And we're going to call that the Fun Break, sponsored by the Joyce Isaacs Show. And that's 1300 a.m. So we've got that. That won't be probably for the next couple of weeks. Now we also have we're also still kind of putting together our solution show.
It's fun show, not.
Although we haven't really.
Mike told me to tell you it's a fun show, not investigative.
Okay, it's a fun show, but it's still going to be investigative. Fun show with Joyce Isaacs. Okay, and coming up later, like I say, we've got. I want to just mention again the story that was in the local paper here this week, which virtually countered everything that this program presented on Monday, telling you folks to rat and to tattletale on your neighbors for high weeds and this kind of thing. And we're seeing this, like I mentioned earlier, every tyrannical regime that's ever come into focus throughout the history of the world has used this tactic to keep us fighting, to keep us divided up, keep us suspicious of one another, while the real enemy is sending our troops 10,000 miles away, enslaving us, setting up smart highways and killing people down here in Polvo, Texas, Polvo Crossing, Texas. A lot of let me just mention one more thing before we get to the first segment. What we've had this last week is an image building. You know, the Washington District of Criminals have got together, they say, and they put together a so-called balanced budget, and it's going to be real good for us. It's going to be real good for the kids and all of this. What they're doing with all of this, folks, this is the emperors attempting to build their image. These rulers and these elitists and the front men for the elitists, for the rulers, are attempting to deceive you to believe that they are actually trying to do something in the best interest of this country. The fact is, folks, don't believe the lie. Don't believe the lie. I mean, they've got us over 50% of our wages they're stealing from us. All the history of wars that they've got us into, were slaughtered hundreds of thousands of our young men and women. The murders at places like Ruby Ridge, Idaho, and Waco, Texas. All of the things that this government has done, and all of the things that that they have, all the lies that they have told us over the last 70, 80 years. Don't believe it, folks. The fact is, this country is bankrupt. It has been bankrupt for a long time. 1933 was the first declared bankruptcy of this country when they put on the War and Emergency Powers Act. We are over $20 trillion in the hole, red ink, right now, mostly going to foreign international banking establishments.
Well, we're extended 20 trillion, but the real debt's $5 trillion.
Well, that's the $6 trillion is what they're telling us, but there's a lot of black. The fact is, folks, don't believe the lie. Do not believe the lie that they're feeding us, that they're going to give us, that they're looking out in our best interest. This is a public image thing, and they all seem to have got together, and they're all seeming to. This is all a lie, folks.
The people have spoken.
The fact is, there's more bombs on their way. I think they're going to create some more chaos, some more controversy.
More Reichstags.
And more Reichstags. And I think what you're going to see is more of these killings down here that went down here in Polvo Crossing, Texas. So,
Jeff, if I can, I'm really
go ahead.
Chomping at the bit about this story. Well, that was Federal Reserve Act. I'm really chomping at the bit about this story that's coming up at 9:30 tonight. And let me tell everybody out there, you do not want to miss the program that's coming up. This shows a city council member yard, and she also owns a rent house across the street.
Folks,
that looks
Hanson.
like Tarzan's
I'm sorry
jungle.
to interrupt your classic viewing of all these classic Jeff Davis and Alex Jones tapes and a bunch of other Patriots here on Mike Hanson Archives, our new channel, Hanson Archives, and our newest channel, Waco Archives, which we're putting up the interviews and all the history from the last 27 years of Mount Carmel and what happened over there. All right, I'm waiting for our worker to get here where we can put some more great stuff up on. There's all our tapes over there, and we got a lot more coming. And we're previewing the tapes now where we can put them up on this editing system here. And we got a new station over here which we're going to be putting the stuff up on the computer, and then it will be transferred over here to the editing station. But what I want to talk to you about is how we're funding this. Is I'm offering, send us $25 for my book, Bohemian Grove, Cult of Conspiracy. There's Alex Jones and I in our younger days. Must be nice. Let's see, where is the book? All this stuff. This is all the stuff that's been previewed and getting ready to be transferred over to be edited over here. You got to remember, out of the 2,000 live shows, a lot of the stuff was, we were changing tapes and stuff back then, and nobody's going to sit there and watch slates, so we edited it down to just the great information. Okay, we need your help out there, folks. Send $25 and we'll send you a signed copy of Bohemian Grove, Cult of Conspiracy, forwarded by Tex Mars. This is the second edition. Believe it or not, there's the first edition. That's hard to get a hold of. But Tex Mars edition is fastly becoming a collector's item because he did pass away not too long ago. So send us $25. You can call us at 830-672-3089, and the girl will take your credit card and she'll send it out, get me to sign it and send it out. Talk to Angela. She'll definitely fix you up here at 830-672-3089. And if you would like to write us, it's 901 St. Joseph's here in beautiful Come and Take It, Gonzales, Texas. First shot of the Texas Independence War happened right here. Some of y'all know I related to Davy Crockett. There is the family tree my son did, and we would appreciate any help you can give us to get this historical feat. It's going to be a lot of work. We figured out one time when I was the producer of Jeff Davis and Alex Jones that we did over 2,000 live shows. And there's a whole bunch of other people too, George Humphrey, Steve Lane, and a bunch of other people that's on these tapes too. And a lot of them are not living anymore. So it's very historical. And, a lot of this stuff was talked about 25 years ago when it wasn't very popular to do so. So if you can help us,
we're not the ones going out and harassing her. It's her city government doing that. And then you'll see Mr. Ellingson's yard right beside it, totally clean, no big problem. A few dead spots in the yard. He's an older man. His wife's died. And then, most importantly, we'll show the city health department, which is overrun, walls falling over 6 foot.
By the way, let me implement something in that. It was told to me that the next day after the story ran, and we showed the shambles that the health department was in.
They cleaned it up. They
were out there cleaning it up.
They've had a dozen crews out there. The place is spotless now.
So, and then the paper comes out with their whitewash.
Well, this is the paper just.
So we are obviously making some inroads.
But here. Jeff, the paper, real fast, just didn't say crime. They said crime. They said East Austin. They said sewage. They said rotten things. They used all these buzzwords. No, this wasn't East Austin, and that doesn't matter anyways. This was West 37th, a person who lived there since 1947 with his family. His wife's dead now. A older American, like 65, 66 years old, done absolutely nothing, and he gets a letter saying, and here's the letter right here. Now, there's the council member's residence saying, and that doesn't even get it, folks, saying you will get 2,000. Now, there's Mr. Ellingson's house. Look how horrible it is. Saying that if he doesn't remove objectionable material, whatever that is, and you'll see more footage later, that there'll be $2,000.
It is the best and most comprehensive book on Bohemian Grove, and it's written by Mike Hanson, my old camera guy. Mike Hanson Archives.
Are you ready to write? Paper came out 2 days after that Thursday, because Monday was really Tuesday, and came out and said these $2,000 fines on the back page of the front page. It was a front page story, but on the back page of the paper of that Thursday, where the story continued, it said this is for your best interest. Residents want control. They need control. People ought to read
crime.
That. Yes, they need control. And then most importantly, Jeff, it said right there, it said these $2,000 a day fines. The city doesn't want to do it, but they have to do it for compliance. $2,000 a day. When my automobile was stolen, the police wouldn't even come out.
Right, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
But so the thing is, all of these...
Total hypocrisy. Tonight, 9:30, folks, you don't want to miss this footage.
Let me just mention, as a side note to all of this, folks, it was the gist of this story was I think that the enemy is basically prostituting three basic elements:
fear, children, sex,
and environment, and crime.
It's very primitive.
Crime, kids.
The witch doctor says the sun won't come back unless you give the witch doctor your property.
And this is the reason. These are the elements that they use.
And it's not that the environment isn't important, but these same corporations, these top 20 corporations and banks, are the ones destroying the environment, cutting down the rainforest, and then they say, vote for bigger government because it'll help the rainforest.
It'll help buy things out.
Big government never helps the environment. Look at Russia or China.
Because the same people, the reason why that doesn't work is it's the same people that own the corporations own the governments and also own the environmental.
You got
it's a network.
And we're not talking about
control.
some little corporation down the street or
No.
some little local bank.
It's a network
We're talking
of-
about Chase Manhattan, Citibank, Bundesbank, Bank of Well, listen, I'll see you at 9:30.
Yes, sir.
Jeff.
Okay, we'll be back at 9:30 with
You won't believe this, folks.
with this segment, and we raise enough. Anyway, it's been talked about a lot.
We raised all the FM.
And keep in mind,
all
folks,
the stations.
the bottom line is
Talk
that
radio
it's all
is talking.
communism. It's part of the
It's
10th
thugs
plank.
getting together and
of the-
convincing you to give up your rights. And now they want to force you. That's why every agency's militarizing as we speak.
But it is communism as well. It's right out of the
Well,
communist.
look, communism, fascism,
It's all the
totalitarianism,
same.
it's all the
But
same.
but
It's a
they
false
have-
political spectrum they've given us. This left-right
But
thing's
they
false.
have to
It's
pick-
big thug government and
But
anarchy.
here's the point.
We want
They have-
representative democracy.
They have to come up with some type of philosophy of control.
False philosophy.
And this is one of
religious
the-
control.
This is one of the philosophies. that they
Environmentalism
pick.
is a new religion.
Right. That's one of the philosophies, and so is Karl Marx's teachings. And
Financed by big bankers.
And
during the
also,
century.
I'll just briefly comment this movement, and we're going to get to this here in just a moment here. But there is this business of tattling on everybody.
Uh-huh.
Have you noticed this?
Yeah.
This is this
Water waster hotlines.
If you see someone watering their yard at a time that's not appropriate to the city, call and report.
You know what's funny though?
If you
UT
see 'em-
has an exemption. And I don't think it's UT, but they have an exemption. They can water all they want. These big corporations, IBM people, they all have exemptions. But you water in your little flower garden. See,
But do you see
they
what
wanna
that
get
does?
You used, they want to get you used.
What
to,
does that do
it's
to
a-
them?
It's
to
okay
the-
to tattle. It's
what,
okay to
yeah,
tattle.
what
on
does
the
that
neighbors.
do ultimately to society and then the people?
It balkanizes it.
Right. It makes them suspicious of everybody.
No one will talk to
Gets
each
them
other.
fighting amongst themselves.
So the big fish can rob and rule over.
That's exactly
And
it.
they also
tattletale on everybody, folks. That's what they want you to do.
Something you got to. People have to understand this, though, out there, Jeff. Environmentalism feels good, and it's a good thing if it was grassroots, but it's been co-opted since the 1960s. It is controlled and financed. Hell, turn of the century, the Rockefeller Foundations funded all these big environmental
They
groups
still
as an
are.
excuse to take people's land, and then they would build a hotel on the other side of the river.
What was this special bulletin you handed me
Oh,
here?
I got this off the
I want to
internet.
I want to say thanks. Alex is one of the people down here that has teamed up, and we're going out and do some investigative tours. We've got some other people coming in here in just a few minutes to do some other areas. But Alex, you've done
we'll be
an
back at
excellent
9:30.
job teaming up with this program and exposing some of these shenanigans going on by these people.
But
under
Jeff,
the
you're not Peter
disguise-
Jennings. You're not wearing a $3,000
under the
shirt.
disguise
I'm not
of
listening.
crime, environment, and kids.
Okay, right here. Now this is, and I've gone to the Federal Registry. You can get that off the internet. See, they want us to think the whole internet is nothing but drug addicts selling pornography. No, most of the internet is like being able to access the Library of Congress whenever you want. Okay, so I went onto the internet to the House webpage, and at that same point, you can download stuff that's not classified. The Federal Registry. That means the bureaucracies that just write laws. And yes,
let me
yes.
read. Now this is interesting.
And then no one oversees it.
Let me read this.
Well,
this is coming from the
Read
national.
the summary. Read the summary.
Yeah, I'm going to. This is coming from the National Department of Transportation. You know, the National Highway Traffic Safety. You know,
If you control mobility, you control everybody.
Listen to
Mobility
this,
is the
folks.
key.
Listen to
How
this.
do they knock out the
Let me read this.
Wait. How do they knock out the Plains Indians? They killed the buffalo, their food supply, and they shot their horses out from underneath them and starved them.
Yeah, I know.
That's how they
Let
enslave
me
us.
go ahead and
Sure.
read this just real quick here, folks. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration announces the availability of federal funds. See, this is how they're controlling the locals.
They take
and
our
the
tax
state.
money and then dole it back out to the state.
Announces the availability of federal funds to support the planning effort necessary to demonstrate and evaluate the effectiveness of pre-driver's license drug testing to deter drug use. See, here they're prostituting
they're
the
going to
drug
put
use.
clinics in. It's already been
Reduce-
passed, but listen to this. It just has to be picked up by the states, but it's been defeated in 3 states by this group. But listen to this. It's part of the thumb scanners. Texas has had this for 2.5 years. It was never on the news. It was never in the media, and this is all part of an integrated plan. Imagine going in to get your driver's license and you have to urinate. Now they say,
this is the
people probably remember Clinton a few months ago saying, the kiddies up to 17 will have to urinate before they get a driver's license. Well, in the actual Federal Registry where bureaucrats just write laws and Clinton approves them, what does it actually say? And the Republicans aren't speaking out, by the way.
See, this
wait. What does it say? It says it says people 17 and under and anyone else.
See, this
so it's people of all ages.
Now you're an investigative reporter.
Well, we're fixing to have that at 9:30.
So the thing, you're getting a lot of hats down here at AT&T. But the point
FM
is,
radio
this
host,
is a
yeah.
perfect example of how the enemy is controlling things at the top.
Well, that's why we're excited.
In other
because
words,
I'm mad.
they say to the states and the cities and the counties, you know, if we'll give you so-called free
It's
funds.
feudalism. It's feudalism.
Yeah, free funds.
The big central kings.
But they
of
call
Washington,
it free funds.
Of course.
Free.
Yeah.
Free funds.
We took somebody's house
They
for
get-
it. Yeah. But it's okay. You can go to the government and get it. A nice public housing.
But if you noticed how it always, we'll give you these free funds, but what's key here is that there's always strings attached.
Of course.
In other words, the states and the cities have to comply.
Pee in a bottle.
Pee in a bottle.
Scan
Pre-driver's
your thumb. Scan
license
your thumb.
drug
See,
test.
who would thought 10 years ago that they'd have a scan?
And if they do that,
now this urinate in a bottle. This will be here soon. And you'll just accept it out there, won't you?
And if the states agree to it, they get $2 million for $2 million will be made available for these planning grants. Isn't that nice?
And then they institute.
They're going to take good care of us with that $2 million.
And then Lockheed Martin Marietta gets to run these nice flashy commercials
there it is.
selling us the thumb scanners. Lockheed Martin Marietta is putting out hand scanners and thumb scanners. The defense industry is going into human slavery here in the U.S. They're buying media up as fast as they can.
The National Highway.
These so-called liberals that are afraid of the military-industrial complex, they better find out who owns their precious media that tells them to vote for Big Daddy Clinton.
The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. What a nice little name.
In fact, I'm going to read some other key points later.
Well, let's go ahead. We've actually got Alex, we'll see you back. Yeah, we'll see you back,
9:30. This expose that I went out and filmed with your producer is awesome.
Okay, we're going to come back in here now. We've got some other guests coming in here.
Okay, folks, it's Mike Hanson. Sorry to interrupt you here. We're busy in here. As you can see, we got editing going on, previewing over here, and we need your help. To keep this rolling, we would love for you to send in $25, and I will send you back a signed copy of my book, Bohemian Grove, Cult of Conspiracy. It was forwarded by Tex Mars that just recently passed away, and it's fastly becoming a classic because there's not going to be any more Tex Mars. And that's when we snuck in back in the year 2000, the Bohemian Grove. There's Alex and myself when we were younger. Must be nice. And just, if you would, just send in your money and where you want it sent to our address here in Gonzales, Texas at 901 St. Joseph Street, Gonzales, Texas. If you want to call us here at 830-672-3089. Thanks a lot and God bless, and continue to subscribe to our YouTube channels here, Mike Hanson Archives, and our newest one, Waco Archives. Thanks a lot and God bless, and we'll let you get back to your classic viewing here on YouTube.
The show. My name is Officer Jack McLam, and watch for my new book here. We've got an updated Vampire Killer 2000 manual. This is our police action plan for stopping world government rule. Thank you very much. Okay. That's all we need. Thank you, man. Okay, nice meeting. Thanks for your work. Appreciate you a lot. We're on the same fight. In the same fight. That's right. I think it's fun. A lot of people get depressed. We're good guys.
Where you went? Oh, okay.
We're not the establishment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good, yeah.
Probably all these bands. Where are they at? That's the one at the Mississippi.
That's the United Nations Volunteer.
I know. They do.
This right here. Have you seen these right here?
We've even played this. This is pretty cool.
Yeah. Greenville, South Carolina.
Testimony of his men. We got the pictures from inside the bunkers. This is inside Camisea. These are the chemical and biological rounds that they didn't show you. You would take pictures of that. You could see that now one of these crates, now one of them has Arabic markings on them. They're all written in English or in Russian. They indicate that they're from Amman, Jordan, from Middlesex, England, from the U.S., and from Russia. Now, you may have been noticing on the news they show you clips of when they exploded Camisea. That's what this...
Jeff Davis Show. And for more information on what's happening with the Gulf War illness, stay tuned to the Jeff Davis Show.
Hello, Austin, Texas, and we are back. And we're actually joined by a couple of guests here. I want to just premise this particular segment here with, let's see, what's actually happening here. As we talked about earlier, there was a young fella. How old was this fella?
He was 18 years old.
18 years old.
In fact, his death occurred approximately 1 week after he had turned 18 for his 18th birthday, and he was taken out by this Marine approximately 2 hours after he had obtained his Texas driver's license. So that we just want to represent, not maybe represent him, but try to get somebody to come forth and let's make everything right for these people. We believe they were done injustice by this.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, let's just mention that the young fella's name was Mr. Esequiel Hernandez Jr. And the claims are, folks, that he was shot to death by U.S. Marines in Polvo Crossing, Texas. Now, joining us with this, now we have some excellent footage, I understand, to complement this particular section or story that we're doing here. If y'all want to go ahead and introduce yourselves, I think that'd be just the best way to go about it.
James Ritter.
James Ritter's over here to my left. Good to have you on the program, James.
Evening. I'm John Segura.
John Segura. Pleased to meet you, John.
Nice meeting you, sir.
Okay, go ahead, guys, if you will. First off, tell us a little bit about this story and how you all happened to get involved with it, if you would. Do you actually know this fella, this young fella?
No, we just kind of picked up on one and decided how to. Well, he was the one that gave me the invitation. Look, let's go down here and let's do an interview with these people, see what happened. So he pretty much, asked me to do this, and in return, I told him, sure, let's do it. Let's see maybe what outcome we can get, because still at the time that we went down there, there was still not anybody taking a claim for it. I was the one that was responsible, or how the Marine troops came to be in that general area at the time that we did the interview. Now,
tell us a little bit about either one of you can comment, but tell us a little bit about how what the circumstances were, and how you believe that this you're making the claim that you think he was murdered. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, give us a little bit of a premise as to what.
Well, according to the reports, Mr. Hernandez was 18 and was for a long time in that general area, real popular, real well-known, well-mannered student. He was a student in Presidio High School. He was a junior. Again, like I said, he was 18 years old. He was a goat herder and always took the proper steps. He fed his animals right. He exercised them so they wouldn't get out of shape, because he did sell them. They always put them on the block, and any monies that he made was in return to go back into his family to help support him, because he was one of the providers as well as his dad. So pretty much he always took the time to care for his animals, feed them, then he would take them out and exercise them. And in doing so, if we get a chance later to go through the map, I can show you where he was
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that now. Let's go ahead and show us what you got here, John. Okay, what do we got here now?
Okay.
Can we get a close-up of this?
See where we can put it, we can get a close-up.
This is the general area, Polvo Crossing.
Okay.
And if you can get the numbers, everything is labeled here. They normally came in, exercise them, because it was like at a hillside. He'd come up and take them up to mainly get them to exercise properly so it wouldn't get out of shape. And that's basically where the Marines, which were stationed here, saw him come up through. They were taken for granted. Now this is the Rio Grande River right in here. They took for granted he had come through there, but had been on their personal property.
Where's this near exactly? I mean,
16 miles south of Presidio.
Okay.
You got Redford up in here, and this is actually Polvo's Crossing. A little pickup truck carry people across, and the Marines were down in this gully, this draw, and Esequiel basically came up behind them, shot his gun off twice, and 20 minutes later he's dead.
Okay, why did he shoot off his gun?
And when we go through the footage, there was a older gentleman that resided right in that general area where all the Hernandez family reside. that had gotten critically ill, that had been hospitalized in Marfa, and he had some dogs, and they were not tended for, so therefore they pretty much lived off the land. And since he had some younger goats, these dogs would try to attack his goats. So he carried a small 1918 model 22 that he carried, and mainly what he used it for was the bang in order to scare the dogs off, because they weren't robbing his animals.
Okay. Well, the only reason why I asked that is because that question may came up. I also think we're having a problem with our phones down here, so I don't know what. But anyway, so when you all heard about this, right?
Well,
then you decided
it's kind of a mutual friend of the Hernandez family, who also knows some friends of mine. And since we had been out to West Texas, he asked if maybe we could come out and take a look at his little situation.
And you actually drove down to the
500 miles.
500 miles to Polvo Crossing, Texas, huh? What city is this near? Is it like maybe towards El Paso?
Presidio, south of El Paso by 180 miles or so. Correct. And this is 16 miles south of Presidio.
Okay.
And Big Bend is further south.
Okay. So, what date did this event take place?
He was shot, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was May 20th.
Let me see. Is this all your notes to this?
I have several notes.
Vast research staff there.
I guess so.
Lovely wife.
The major players. You've even got the major players involved.
Some of them are rather interesting.
To be exact, May 20th was the shooting.
He was the same guy from Republic of Texas standoff.
Captain Barry Caver.
I think that was him.
He was involved in what took place there. It was on May 20th. This young you're claiming that this young fellow was gunned down by a variety of Texas Rangers and military.
No, basically what it was a Marine.
A reconnaissance patrol, probably watching Polvo's crossing. The four-wheel drive pickup we'll show you.
Okay.
We guess that's the only thing around there he could have been watching.
Now, when we get to the footage here, what are we going to be seeing on this? We're going to get to just yet, but what are we going to be? Do you actually interview the family members of these?
Well, the mother and father were gone, if I recall.
Right. They had been they had gone out to El Paso to get away from the house for a while. It was becoming too much on them. You know, real bad heartthrob. They were having a real hard time because their house, if they looked up towards the Catholic church is there, and you may see it in the footage. There's a church you could see right next to the house, and the well where Esequiel was shot. So they took it pretty hard. Being that everybody in that general area, El Polvo, la área esa, that area, they all are pretty much united. Everybody knows everything. If they were losing an animal, they'd go to one neighbor. No, we've seen it so and so's place, and everybody would work together. If somebody needed something, they were all there to attend and help for each other.
He was shot within inside of the church.
This is
where
the
he
church
was buried in the graveyard.
Can we get a close-up of this? Is that possible? Now, this is the church where he attended?
That's the church also where they had the wake and the services for him also.
Okay, there's a copy of the church that young Mr. Hernandez attended. Do you have anything else to show while we got these close-ups up here? Or?
Well, let's see here.
Yes, we got actual video coming up, but I want to just set the
actual
flavor.
video. Well, this shot here is right there.
It just arrived.
What's that?
The videotape. It just arrived.
Oh, okay. Hi,
It
sweetie.
was forgot his home.
Okay, that's
anyway. This is, if you can see the gully down there. The Marines are right down there. Polvo's crossing with the pickup truck is up.
Go ahead and explain that while we get it up there. Go ahead. We'll get it.
Got it.
There we go.
Right in there between them, the Marine. This is the Rio Grande here, and the gully runs right up through here. And the Marines were down there. The four-wheel drive pickup / ferry boats down here off on upriver, and Esequiel came in behind them. Was shooting off at just shooting off, and so they tracked him for 20 minutes. And when he went to fire a third shot, long way off, they.
Okay, now we also have. Coming up in a later segment, what we're going to do, We also have some footage of the Republic of Texas, and we also had, do we not have an interview with Michael Madsen, the one that was shot
It was
by the DPS, and then he didn't even have a record, any type of a record, so they basically murdered him as well out of that that Republic of Texas situation.
Well, it's a pretty short interview. There's the second oldest brother and all. See what else we have down here.
Well, anyway, before I want to get to the video here in a little bit, but I want to make sure you all have. Why are you all doing this? Let me ask you that then. So you got involved in the story.
I was asked by my friend, who's a friend of the Hernandez family, to see if we could come down and take a look at it.
Okay. Did his parents also believe that he was murdered?
Yes, because the mother was at the time of the shooting. I was told by one of the second to the oldest brother, the time of the shooting was about 6:15 p.m. And normally they all come out and sit out on the side of the house and just enjoy the cool air. You know, as the sun's going down, they get to just enjoy the shade. So they were. Where did I leave off? Let's see, where did I leave off?
You're doing a fantastic job.
I have so much that I've been trying to recollect and bring to him. They had come out and enjoy the evening when they heard the fire, but it didn't sound like the normal 22 that he shot in the area. And when they all tried to go uphill to find out what happened, by that time U.S. Border Patrol had come in and wouldn't let them near him. They wouldn't even let them know what had taken place, other than they heard a loud bang, gunfire, and they knew that it wasn't the average 22.
Can I play devil's advocate with you a little bit? Now, a lot of people that would be watching this show, well, maybe not a lot watching this show, but let's say if there was some new folks watching the show that believe that, for example, that the Branch Davidians, deserve to be murdered in their home in Waco, and these other events where these government agencies have gone in with wrong addresses and harassed people and whatnot. But what would be your argument then to say that this young fella fired and maybe the Marines at the time were firing and what they believed a threat to them, and they were firing back in self-defense?
I don't know. As far as the Marines claiming that they were firing in self-defense, I don't think that.
No, I don't know if that's even what they're claiming. Yeah. I'm just saying, just from anybody that just tune into this program would say, well, we don't really know what went on there. Maybe this young fella was firing at these Marines, and maybe they just fired. And I'm just trying to say, I'm just trying to, you got to kind of look at things in all respects, I think.
As far as them being threatened, and probably that's what it's in regards to.
That would probably be their claim, wouldn't it?
That's exactly what came out on the footage, on all the reports that we got, on the paperwork and research that we did. They felt that they were threatened because he was carrying that rifle. They felt unease, like we mentioned earlier. He'd been tracked for 20 minutes, so if they felt threatened, and at the same time, all they had to do was advise them, identify themselves. I believe that would have been enough threat, because he would have known by this certain corporal identifying himself as a United States Marine doing surveillance or Border Patrol watch. He would have halted.
Yeah. Of course. How many people were involved in this?
There were approximately 5 people. One, Mr. Hernandez, and 4 Marines.
What are all these other names that you have here? These DPS fellas?
Those are the people that are involved in the investigation, whether they come from the Justice Department. He's head of the Texas Rangers, and again, he went to the Republic of Texas and was in the investigations there. And then the DA that came out, Alberto Valadez, he's the one that's trying to bring the indictments down over in Presidio County. He is the DA for that area. And there's several.
He's trying to bring indictments down on the Marines.
That's correct. And if they do, they should be served and come out of the courtroom, I would believe, August 14th, if that's correct for the date.
Before we get to the video, John, what else would I want to make sure that y'all have the opportunity to say, everything that you want, that you want to present here. Of course, we're going to have some time here. We still have an hour, but well, let me ask you this: what have you seen the footage, or you were down there making it, right? Okay,
I was the one that did the interview with the Hernandez family.
Okay, what are we gonna be seeing? Okay, let me ask, before we get to that. What do you want? Are you pushing for indictments on these Marines?
Give you a note.
Are you pushing for indictments?
Maybe you could say that we are. Maybe not necessarily. We want justice served. That's what we want. We're not doing this for our benefit. We're doing it for the Hernandez family, because when we went down there to do the interview, they still hadn't received a word from anybody as far as saying, I'm sorry, there was a wrongful death, or we're responsible for it, we killed them, in any form. Nothing. Nobody had come forth to say anything to the Hernandez family, and we didn't feel that was right, because he was an 18-year-old kid. He was a Texan. He was trying to educate himself to make himself better, and we just feel that it was wrong, a wrongful death. That's what we say.
So you want justice?
That's correct. All we want is for somebody that...
How much time have you put into this since the...
The research and everything. Well, as you can see, there's
what did you do? Did you go down and spend a few days down there?
Yeah, we drove down there. We left one Thursday evening, went down there and did an interview with them during the day. They invited us into their house. We got to go in and we got to see their house, what he grew up like. We got to see his goats, his storage shed. So we really had a lot of... They welcomed us real well, and we thought that we had a big impact on it.
Okay, the tape is in the wrong speed, so he had to go get the other one at home. So we're going to change things up and have Alex come on first with his piece, and then we'll run your piece last tonight.
Okay, folks. We've actually got.
Can you explain that?
Yeah. We've actually, the original the footage that we brought down to the studio was the wrong speed. It's got to be SP, I guess.
Correct.
So we've got a messenger to go get the SP copy. So this actual footage is going to be held off for about an hour or so. And what about the where did he go? What about the Republic of Texas footage? Were you involved in that as well?
No, I didn't get a chance to make that one.
Okay, but we can still go ahead and run that, can't we? Instead, for now.
We can run that while we change.
Because we've already told a lot of these people 9:30 for the lawn one. Why don't we go ahead and just go on with the Republic of Texas? Then we'll come back with John again, and when Jimmy and them get back, then we can go ahead and play part of it. Okay, that makes the most sense to me.
Okay.
Okay, let's go ahead and run the. Now, we do have some footage, and we're going to get you back, John. There's just some confusion because I apologize, we brought the wrong speed
here. It happens.
I was fixing to actually go into your piece here, but we don't have it. But we will. So we're going to, it's probably, I don't know where he lives, so I don't know how long it's going to take for him.
I figure he should be back in about 15 minutes.
Okay. So we'll go with okay, folks, what we're going to do is we're going to continue this story in about 15, 20 minutes with John Segura and James Ritter, and this is like I say, we've been talking about. Well, go ahead. What's Mr. Hernandez, who there's a big story going on down there on Polville Crossing, Texas, basically saying that there was charges being made that the Marines basically murdered this young fellow along the border there.
Correct.
And we have the footage, and you've interviewed.
We've went down and did an interview with Francisco Hernandez, which was second to the oldest brother of Esequiel, because there's 3 brothers, and they have a younger brother also. Went down and did an interview with him. He took us over their property. We got to see the Rio Grande. He showed us the exact areas, because everything was tapered off with the yellow tape, the yellow ribbon they use when they do general investigations. And we got to see film and tape where the Marines were set up, where the one Marine moved to and set himself up, and where Mr. Esequiel Hernandez was stationed at when he come on site. And then they advised him that there had been a shooting. By that time, the Marines had already been there, lifted out, and hauled back to Camp Pendleton.
Okay, we ready with the Republic of Texas footage? Okay, then 1 minute for that, and. Say, John, I guess where I'm going with this is I have since 1990, when I made my first run for public office, I have seen repeatedly information in the so-called mainstream media, where information is either you don't hear it, or it's discredited, and depending upon what it is, or you don't get any information, or you get what I would call a pre-approved script of the information. For example, the Republic of Texas footage that we're fixing to show shows, dozens of people out protesting the DPS and standing up for those people inside the so-called compound at Fort Davis. Well, we never really saw that in the mainstream media. The only thing we saw was this DPS fella, and he'd give like 2 or 3 times a day, he'd give a news conference, and it was just like a fashioned.
The media has
and that's all. That's all you'd get.
You have, they always set aside their one spokesman and all he's going to give is a brief comment.
Right.
And that's it.
And they also did this in Waco.
Correct. They did that.
Where the only information that we were receiving was from this stupid FBI conference every day, and that's all that we were getting. And each time the actual people that are the victims, what I consider to be the victims, they're not even allowed access to the media. They don't. Their phone lines are cut off. I mean, and I'm suggesting that, this may be the case in a situation like this. Well, I haven't really followed this issue, but
you have a lot of what you said is very much true, Jeff. Because in this case right here, the father, which is Esequiel Sr., was not allowed to come up and view his son until, I believe, Mr. Francisco Hernandez told me it was maybe almost 10 p.m. before he came. And that was because the main sheriff out of Presidio County had come to the residence and asked him to come up to the top to make sure and make a positive ID is what I want to tell you.
So you do see some of these signs of this happening.
Correct.
Yeah, I've seen it repeatedly. In fact, when this whole Republic of Texas thing was going on, I attempted to have Rick McLaren call in on this program because he'd been a guest on here, prior to that, and the DPS just flat out denied it. So in other words, there are all these charges being made about, this person or that person or, this group or that group, and they are absolutely unable to even counter any of these charges. And it's just an onslaught of misinformation and no information and pre-approved information. And you see this time and time again.
And that's correct. It happens all the time. A lot of this information we got, our research crew, which are located back at the houses, they went through a lot to bring all this up. And we have to give them thanks for it because they do a lot of the research for us. Of course, we have to keep on going through the news media and listen to what we can find, whether it comes off cable news network or any of the network stations that we can get a hold of, just to hear more. We've heard announcements made on shortwave that came about that we picked up information also. And in fact, I cannot remember the gentleman's name that has the radio station on the shortwave, but he gave us a lot of information and gave a lot of the news media that had wrong ideas of what had happened, made them correct, stood up for it. Okay, let's get the information right, guys. Like he announced, he goes, okay, the reporter in San Antonio, let's get it right. It's not called Redlands, it's called Redford. And El Polvo is an area of Redford, which is like maybe 5 miles.
But then you still got to wonder then if it even made print.
In Presidio County, it did. In fact, the day that we were down there doing our interview, there was the newspaper clipping that had come out that the district attorney, the DA down there, Valadez, wanted to make the motion to the grand jury to bring down indictments, to bring these officers down and get a thorough investigation other than just, okay, well, this happened, you shot him, this took place here and that, okay, and that's it. That's pretty much what their investigation was. And it was closed. Nobody else said anything. Nobody knew anything. When they brought the main sheriff down there from Presidio County, he wasn't aware that there was a Marine Corps troop set up down there to do surveillance. United States Border Patrol didn't want to claim for that. They said, we don't have anything to do with it. We don't know anything. But then after everybody got together, somebody had to say, okay, yeah, we know about them. But by that time, chopper came in, airlifted them, and they were out.
Well, it sounds like an interesting story, John. Let's go ahead now. Folks, this is different from what we're talking about here. We're waiting for the footage from John and James when he gets back. But concerning the incident in, well, I'm just terrible, Provo Crossing, Texas, where a young fellow was, Esequiel Hernandez was apparently shot down by U.S. Marines. But until we get back, folks, we're going to play about 15-20 minutes from some exclusive footage concerning the Republic of Texas and their so-called siege 20 months back, or a couple of months back, and of course ended up in the death of one of the fellows interviewed.
Jeff who,
Who didn't even have
phone number I left on your desk there?
Which one?
George Douglas. It's under the clipboard.
Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be on the show today, aren't I?
I don't know.
Oh, we all get so busy.
You better call him.
1:30 time. 1:30 my time. I'm supposed to be on.
Well, that's in an hour.
And some Neosporin.
Neosporin's good.
Yeah, that's great.
I get heartburn every time I slip on the mountain and slide
Just
down.
returning the call. We're here.
Doing? I've had worse days.
Well, being an embassy guard, got to have its ups and downs.
Did you say imbecile or embassy? Because I do both. Well, when are they going to stop us? When are they going to do this? When are they going to do that? But what was it, 443 on I-10, the last cop?
The last cop, and he was a black and white, earning revenue.
Yeah,
generating revenue.
Writing them to getting that autograph.
Yeah.
I got the ammo in here. We brought up some,
They'll search you out of anything you do. They'll take everything out of your truck.
Well, we know, Rick. We've been up there twice.
That's the important reason they do it.
Well, that might be reason enough they might let us go. Yes, so far what we got, folks. Not much support. I was hoping there'd be tons of people out here. Well,
whatever a man feels like he wants to say.
We won't stand for no more Wacos, no more Ruby Ridges.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, are you able to film the roadblock?
Help them out, Gino. Busy doing God's work. We did God's work a little while ago. Help somebody broke down.
That's work. That's part of it.
Pushing our people around, or training to push our people around to make this move for this here ID card.
And the Reverend Otwell.
Folks don't believe that, but that's coming. That's what it's all about. And we don't.
See, look at this, Ma. I told you should come with me. Keep me out of trouble. Hey, what's all that say?
And beat. We, the black booted, black suited, black helmet, machine gun toted, ATF, FBI want to bow and kiss it. We in Congress, U.S. Supreme Court have been kissing. I'm an ecumenical, multicultural, globalist preacher. Let me kiss it.
Well, sounds like it might be X-rated, but... No comment. Boy, talk about info babes.
Just place looks a lot different than last time we came up here and we visited with it.
Sure does. Protect and serve from Maine and burn. How much do they get? 38,000 a year?
Yeah.
42,000 a year, there they sit. Hello, brother.
Yeah, I asked him every time. You know what's crazy?
She's way back there.
Well, that's where I know there's wine. Have you ever been back there yourself? Did you ever see the bodyguard? Hey, Grandma. Is your husband frustrated?
Well, you know, when I got sent out there, the last thing I remember, I just wanted on my way out the door.
That's on a band together. Clarence has this. Stay home outside. What about working on Richard? Is that what we talking about? Lay it down and go, baby.
How fast are you able to go? Yes, sir.
How do you spell that first name?
Slow pokey.
Yeah,
Here he is getting interviewed. Tell him your weapon's a pen and it's not gonna get run over, am I? Tell him you write letters, Gino.
You agree with what's going on, but you don't want him to die. Right. He's got to get the word out. The powers that be don't want that, because if the truth comes out, they're in trouble. They're out of a job. They're out of their power base, their money base. I mean, you and I, we're as bad as the next guy. That we're up there, we're in control, and these guys come and say, look, y'all are illegal. You got to vacate. You got to do something about it.
Camera gear. Big fancy camera. He even got remote control. Star.
They're going to have to do some more compromise. Rick will bend a little here. These guys are going to bend a little there. Someone's going to follow the public protectors, and I don't tend to want to follow it. We've got to get that together, because everyone's basically saying the same thing. Things are a little different than the same. It's not the public that to get together.
I'm a Bubba and I'm okay. I'm okay the Bubba way. I've never seen a Mini 14 with a bayonet look.
Something strong enough. Yeah, it's deep inside all this. You got something to die for. Hey,
Now, what a cutie. We'll get to that in a second. Most of them already know.
No. We don't want him to dam anything here. We want his blessing over all of his proceedings, okay?
10-4.
Go up to the mic, please. Are we all in agreement that we want God's blessing on this? And for this whole thing to end peacefully and according to his will? And we had come to some agreement on that. Okay, I just talked to Archie Lowe here a few minutes ago. My name is Ron Beans, in case anybody doesn't know who I am yet. B-E-A-M-E-S. I'm a resident here in Jeff Davis County of Texas. All right. I talked to Archie Lowe on the phone a few minutes ago. He asked that I go ahead and be spokesperson for the Republic of Texas since he can't be here himself. All right. And what he asked me to inform the people of right now is that on Sunday, May 4th, this coming Sunday, at 1 p.m. in the afternoon.
Look at them all. Real men, huh? There's the only man I know walking right there. I don't know anything about these other guys.
Background, be walking down the street, all these DPS cars.
Stand there and tell me what you think of DPS.
I don't know. They're not doing a bad job, but I think both sides are doing it. Damn thing, man. What's your cry, baby?
You're exactly right, Gene. Take lettuce, grow up and seam, have some steaks, a couple of beers, not ask no questions.
Everything be okay.
Everything be just fine.
It's so simple, you know. Maybe that's the problem. The whole damn answer is so simple.
Yeah, it's all ridiculous having all this shit out here. One more, two more. Oh, Lord, look at them all. Stand there and watch them.
There's a ton of them.
No, they're all going to probably different shift. They're probably going home.
No, I mean news people.
Oh. Uh-huh. Let's come back for the next ones. There they go. I'm gonna shut my mouth. Hello. Oh, we just missed the. That must have been the. Here's one for you, Bob.
Un peu après 12 heures locales.
Les meubes passent 5.
I love Mike Hanson Archives.
Hello, Austin, Texas. We are back. Now, folks, as I promised you, we have some footage pertaining to young Mr. Hernandez. And I want to just, before we get to it, I want to just give you all a brief opportunity to say pretty much what we're going to be seeing on this video. We'll go to James first. Welcome back, James. I appreciate you going to get that video. Since but go ahead, James. What do you
Well, we just basically wanted to take some pictures, have a little fun. What do you think? Yeah?
We went down to take some pictures, yeah, you know, take an evening ride and try to bring something up informative for the people, just to make them aware of what happens.
Let them know that there was other people out there are aware of what happened to them, and they ain't forgotten. They're out in the middle of nowhere.
And while I got you all here, I want to say that I appreciate your doing what you're doing, and I appreciate you bringing it to this program, because it enhances that's what this program's all about. The information that, one reason or another may not be seen in the so-called mainstream.
That's the kind of information we seem to wind up with.
Yeah, that's the kind we want down here.
You showed some of the West Texas standoff while I was gone, I guess.
Yes, we did.
Are
we ready with the video? Now go ahead and explain. This is
Can we talk over the video, or?
I think it's got audio. It's got audio to it, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, I think we'll just go ahead and
play it.
Just go ahead and play it, and go with that then. And then we're gonna go about like 25 minutes of it, and then we gotta cut on to another thing. We'll let you all have to make a closing statement, and I invite you all back.
Well,
if we don't get enough in, we may be, but it's hard to say.
We'll wait, because I don't want to say anything.
He'd watch them, walk them up and down the road. This is where they would feed. If you could see off into this, where this ravine is, this is usually where he would bring them out so they could feed and walk around. He could tell how far distance they were because he had bells on his animals. He'd normally graze them there and walk them towards his residence just to cool down for his own. Now if you look beyond this hilltop, you can see some little yellow markers right even straight ahead where that pole is.
Yes, sir.
That is where the Marine was, should I say,
that was his location.
Huh? That was his location when he shot Mr. Hernandez. Mr. Hernandez was located at this old residence with his
Going too fast for me. He was right there by that telephone pole.
You can see the yellow markers.
I can see some yellow tape or something out there.
Okay, that's where he was. That's where the Marine was stationed at, and fired across this road at the brother who was taking care of his animals over here on this side.
Shit almighty.
Tus padres, ¿cómo se sienten? How do your parents feel? Bueno, ¿qué otra? ¿Han venido más gentes, más agencias a darles apoyo, a ver si no pueden hacer nada? Anybody else come out here to try to help you in any way?
Nomás han venido como orders y cosas, me han dado mucho, pero aquí donde están varios tirados. Creo que según expliqué todos que venían siguiendo de allá, pero él venía caminando así por el camino, he was just walking. Es que aquel lado de la casa queda baja las goats así para ese ruido, ¿verdad? Se suena la casa en la mitad. Y él se venía caminando para acá, para que no le fueran a pasar para allá. Se le daban vueltas, ¿me entiendes? Y se le iban para allá, entonces él se venía caminando por todo el camino y él venía caminando para acá.
¿La casa, la que está esa? ¿Aquella?
¿Cuál?
¿Aquella que está?
No,
esa que está acá.
Sí, de ahí él se venía para acá, de ahí él soltaba la chiva.
If you can get footage on that adobe house right there, there's a ravine that lets in. That's where his brother would walk his animals in and get them their exercise as they came up over the cliff. He would walk this way to keep his animals from going farther down and getting away from them. The Marine was stationed there. When he saw him cross the road, he let him get into the area here and then fired at him. But
so he had come by that Marine to begin with.
He came by him and then cut across to come back to his property.
Do you think he was aware that the Marines were out there?
¿Tú piensas que él sabía?
No, nadie sabía.
No idea.
Nobody knew.
Nobody
knew anything.
Nobody.
The Marines were set up over there. Cuando él vio a mi hermano que echó las ciudades para allá, se vino siguiendo.
The Marines were stationed on that side of the river. When they saw his brother making his descent to come towards the residence, is when they moved in and one stationed himself to take his shot.
Oh Lord, take your head off.
This is where he was located when he was found. He was laying with feet facing that way and a head this way. Nadie sabía nada.
Nadie. Imagínate cómo nosotros así vamos
With the people that live in the general area right here, all around surrounding this area, nobody knew anything or otherwise of these Marines being out here on this property, whether they were doing traffic control or foot patrol or whatever. Nobody had any knowledge whatsoever of what was taking place on these pieces of property.
Nobody knew they were armed military personnel in there.
Nobody knew they were armed or they were military personnel, and all these people almost all commute with one another. They all live here.
Ya teníamos 2-3 días antes que la Border Patrol traficaba mucho, o sea, por los otros dos caminos, por aquel y por él. Cuando llegaba un mueble que iba para el otro lado del River, algo, la Border Patrol llegaba, pero nosotros no sabíamos por qué. Cómo se están dando cuenta de todos los menos que están llegando, Dios de mí. Si alguien pasaba el río, la Border Patrol llegaba, pero nosotros nunca sabíamos que estaban escondidos ahí. Entonces cuando eso pasó, entonces la Border Patrol dijo que no sabía nada, que ellos estaban allí.
There had been vehicular traffic by U.S. Border Patrol on both this main road we came into and this other road that sits behind us to my left. When they found Mr. Hernandez's body here and advised and notified Border Patrol, no one from Border Patrol had any knowledge whatsoever that the U.S. Marine troops were out here in this field, let alone why they were out here or what they were doing.
Holy shit.
He said that the Border Patrol frequent these roads for 3 days, 4 days, and when this incident took place, nobody knew anything, nobody had any knowledge, nobody wanted to fess up for it, because there was no way that anybody could know that these Marines were out here. Now, what they were doing on Mexico soil is another thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You say they were across the river?
And crossed the river to come to this side to set up a Marine at this one point to pinpoint the target for this person. Even though that Marine suspected that he was a drug trafficker, they failed to recognize and see his animals in which what he was doing, because he was a goat herder.
How would they think he's a drug trafficker if he's out here?
As they saw him walk through the ravine, they misinterpreted and took under consideration he had crossed from Mexico side over the river to come this way. But why? There's no reason. Nobody knows. At this point in time, Mr. Hernandez advised me that there has been a few reporters that have come out, but to no avail, have had no results.
Let's see, we can't change that.
That's what I'm trying.
Te encontraba un rifle. He used to carry a 22 por eso, está bien viejito,
He carried a 22 rifle, single shot, that was 1918 made. It was for something from here to there, maybe.
I understand the old pump.
Protection of goats, you know that.
Yeah, yes, sir.
There's not a lot of wild dogs here around.
Yes, sir.
Aquí vivía un viejito, muy viejito, ya estaba mudo y sordo. Y yo venía a platicar con él aquí, hablando con pura señas. Pero ya tiene algunos meses que lo van al hospital de los viejitos. Y tenía muchos perros, perras y todos parieron, las perras parían ahí. Todos los perros andaban sueltos ahí. Cuando se lo llevaban a él, pues los perros les dio hambre y se mantenían por ahí. Y nomás estaban las chivas que vinieran ustedes y querían comerse las chivas. Entonces, mi hermano estaba el rifle y los asustaba o les tiraba.
The reason that his brother carried a 22 rifle was that in this residence here, there used to be an elderly man that was deaf mute. And the brother and this gentleman would come over and talk to him, even though they just had the simple sign language, to try to communicate.
Yes, sir.
The gentleman got put in the hospital, was hospitalized about 3 months ago or so, and he had several dogs that he left behind that were not tended for. And since he was hospitalized away from here, the animals had the tendency to go out and try to find food. So what they would do was they would wait for the goats to come out And after the goats came out, as when they would come out and try to feed off of the goats. Therefore, that was the reason that Mr. Hernandez carried a .22, solely to protect his animals and to try to scare off the dogs and wild dogs that all lived in the area. That way it wouldn't bring harm to his animals or anybody else in the area. The .22 had very little impact, if anything. All he mainly used it to was for scaring, because it didn't have maybe but a 10-foot travel. It was such an old model. ¿Y tus papás, tu papá, tu mamá, que pues, naturalmente que están bien sentidos?
Sí, entonces salieron también.
The parents of Mr. Hernandez are away from the residence at this time. They were instructed to take a break because they needed to get away from it. It was tending to be a lot on them.
I can understand that.
They decided that the remaining children decided to send them off to visit with other relatives, other part of Texas, to get away from it. That way it wouldn't just be resting on their shoulders.
Well, I hope you extend the invitation if they're ever in Austin, Texas.
No mucho problema porque también tengo una sobrinita en El Paso y nomás está chiquita que la tengo que no hay que hacerle insistir con ella y ya yo con la tengo ya con un doctor que dice que mira que mi brother le dice que se vaya con él. La solita está chiquita pero
tiene que ir como unos 3 años. Pues entonces está como bebita.
Ya habla poquito y todo, o sea, ya habla y también además que tiene como 3 años yo creo. Y ya cuando venía para acá mi padre la paseaba a caballo y todo, la quería mucho. Y ahora ya nomás me estoy pensando y...
I gotta get the sun behind me better.
Mr. Hernandez said that at the present time they're having problems with a niece that lives in El Paso, which in the child being, I'd say between 2, maybe 2.5, 3 years old, has suffered a lot of mental anguish because at the time she is telling Mr. Hernandez's sister, the mother, that she sees Esequiel Jr. telling her to come, come to me, come with me. And therefore she's suffering a lot of she has mental trauma. Right now at the present time they don't know what measures they have to take, but they're thinking that she may possibly have to go in psychological treatment due to this one incident, because she constantly sees Esequiel Jr. asking her to come, because anytime they came from El Paso to the residence to visit, Esequiel was the one that would take them on horseback and ride her around and show her the animals and let her play, and that was more or less the one uncle-niece relationship that they had. Therefore now she is the one that's suffering mental and psychological.
Oh, Lord.
No la puede dejar sola, nada, un ratito.
It's gotten to the point where they can't leave the child unattended, because first thing she does is cry, in other words, what I'm trying to tell you is she cries and is wanting her uncle because she sees him, she dreams him. That was at one point the favorite uncle that she favored.
Sí, pues mi hermano la quería mucho, querían stickers donde se reflejaba comida a caballo y así. Porque mi hermano la quería mucho, pero era una sobrinita. Y venía cada 15 días para que visitarla.
Mr. Hernandez is telling me that Mr. Esequiel Jr. was really very fond of this child. This child on a routine basis every 15 days came to visit with the grandparents to come out to spend some time here, and that was when Esequiel Jr. would always constantly try to give her the attention to make a better relationship between them. And at this point in time, the family doesn't know what will be done or what is going to happen, if there's anything else that's going to happen or take place.
Have they at least offered some kind of compensation?
No les han dicho nada de que les den una recompensa o que le ayudaron con los gastos de los funerales, nada.
No me acuerdo de los gastos de los funerales, porque nosotros andábamos buscando el dinero para hacer los funerales. Y la última vez cuando fuimos a sacar el cuerpo a Marta, Ya está todo pagado.
No les dijeron que él lo había pagado ni nada. Mr. Hernandez is telling me that while they were in the process of gathering the money to have this funeral for Mr. Esequiel Hernandez Jr., they had to go to Marfa to claim the body. Upon their arrival in Marfa, they were informed that all funeral services had been paid for and covered, but the source was not able to be revealed. And to this date, they still do not know who was the one that took charge as far as covering the expenses for the funeral.
Ahí lo velamos en esa iglesia. Toda la noche yo pude verlo.
If you can take a picture and see the church, the white and blue church, this is where Mr. Esequiel Hernandez was brought for his funeral wake and services. They had him here, I would say from one day to the other, and they had prayer rosary and a wake service as normal Catholics do in our religion. And this is where they held all the services for him. ¿Dónde los sepultaron? ¿Dónde?
Oh, there's a graveyard right there.
If you can see the cemetery above the ravine, that's the cemetery where Mr. Hernandez was buried.
And we didn't get any flowers.
Y nosotros tratamos de queríamos traerle unas flores para poner una aquí y poner una allá y no encontramos. Y nosotros es lo que, pues anduvimos, desde que te llamé anduvimos dando vuelta todo ahí, a ver si no encontrábamos donde pudiéramos comprar unas macetas o una corona o algo, que es lo que querían, de veras es lo que, pues mi señora fue lo que dijo que hiciéramos y la señora de él también dijo, van a comprar 2 flores, una para donde lo encontraron y una para llevar al cementerio. Pero ya llegamos aquí y no las queríamos traer de Austin porque fueron casi 12 horas de camino porque no llegaban aquí, llegaban muertos. Y ya no.
Ahí estaba mi mamá cuando pasó esa vez, y yo
¿Mamá estaba en la casa?
Sí, estaban afuera, hay una sombrita porque era en la tarde.
¿Cómo qué?
Iba para allá, como las...
Mr. Hernandez also said and stated that if you can see the houses where they live at, where they reside, Mrs. Hernandez was sitting out in the shade because it was like 6:30 in the evening. They were all outside enjoying the evening when they heard a shot, and it was a real loud shot.
A lot louder than a 22, huh?
Which was in return got their attention. Therefore, they came up here to see what had happened. That is when they discovered Mr. Hernandez's body here. El soldado que le dio el tiro se vino para acá. ¿Se acercó? ¿O ustedes no lo vieron?
No lo vimos ya, nosotros no nos dejan arreglar para acá, no nos dejan arreglar. A mi dad lo trajeron para que viniera a ver el padre, a ver si era el padre.
Mr. Hernandez also says that after the shooting, there was nobody allowed to come up here to this one particular area until after they were through with their initial investigation. After that, they only let one person come up here, and that was Mr. Hernandez Sr. Esequiel Sr. was the only one that was allowed to come up here to identify and make sure that the body they had found was therefore his son.
Entonces, cuando mi papá se vino por acá, porque vio el balazo, se vino por acá porque por acá había mucho puro patrón, y yo venía abajo por mis calles y andaba mi padre cuidando las chivas, entonces él venía para acá. Cuando él venía acá, pues lo arrendaron de ahí y lo dejaron pasar. Entonces se fue por allá y ya lo pagó el sheriff, lo bajó de la bolsa. Y ya le dio una investigada con la vacuna y todo eso. Y mi papá le estuvo buscando a su hijo, que cuando estamos así, hacia su hijo, se dice que lo trajo para acá, y yo lo trajo mi mamá.
Mr. Hernandez said that when the shot was fired, they heard the shot. They didn't see Esequiel Jr. Therefore, Mr. Hernandez drove down the road again over on this side of the ravine and came around. When he came up here, he was asked by officers to remove himself. Therefore, he went back around to come through his usual route. Is when he made contact over on this road by the church, made contact with U.S. Border Patrol and the sheriff.
Murder might have been a little harsh of a word. I can see how these Marines might have been pumped up a little bit. I don't know if I'd say murdered. Might have been there are those out there who think, I know, that we have to clear the border of civilians, and that way the Marines, the military can do whatever they want down there. And there are those who think that this was a setup so that the government can come back and say, so we make sure this doesn't happen again, we just move all civilians from the border area. I don't know about that or not, but we would like to see somebody take responsibility for this to the Hernandez family. Would be nice.
It would be nice if the people who are supposed to be our representatives in this part, as far as the Marines that took place in the shooting, the DA, of course, Mr. Valadez, he's doing a wonderful job down there as far as trying to get the indictments to come down and be served for justice. We do need to make sure that this is accounted for. It's not something that can just happen or take place. Shoot any 18-year-old just because you think he's a drug trafficker. That's too much mistaken identity.
How they confused him with one, I'll never know. It should have been perfectly obvious. He shot twice, and they waited 20 minutes before the Marines shot him. You'd have thought in those 20 minutes they might have figured something out.
I do believe they had plenty of time to assert the situation and make right by it. Whether the proper procedures were taken or not, that's something else that has to come forth or be brought up during, of course, their initial investigation, because that's something that we can't gain access to.
No, we certainly can't. We certainly tried. I don't know.
In the presenting of this, we do hope that some justice is served for the Hernandez family. That's mainly what our concern is. We're not out to push anybody as far as saying, well, he murdered him, hang him.
We don't want to just hang some Marine or something.
We want justice to be brought forth, if anything.
Somebody take responsibility. No major officers showed up to apologize to the family or anything like this. And that was kind of rude. This Republic of Texas president guy sent a little letter. So at least there's somebody trying to.
And again, we also have to give thanks to Jeff Davis for bringing us on and letting us bring
Anybody want to come up here? All right, that's it. All right, who wants the leader? Let Gene go. Go ahead. Yes, sir. All right. God bless the Republic.